If you've been on the JJK side of YouTube in the past couple days, you've probably heard about the news. After 1,186 days, the day that we've been waiting for has finally come. Satoru Gojo is finally out of the prison realm. After 131 chapters, Gojo is finally free from the box. But what does this mean for our protagonist in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen? Questions like will the Culling Games finally come to a close, or how will Gojo react to relearning about everything that's happened so far in his absence, have been asked by nearly everybody in the community. In this video, I'll be going over what's next for the story of Jujutsu Kaisen, and if you enjoy Jujutsu Kaisen content, please leave a like and subscribe, and comment on some video ideas you want to see be done down below. To first fully understand the effect of unsealing Gojo from the prison realm, let's first get an idea of how someone like Gojo affects the entire world of Jujutsu. When Satoru Gojo was born, the balance of the world itself changed. Before Gojo's birth, Jujutsu sorcerers had their hands full with the increasing number of curses. This meant that cursed users can run rampant, living as selfishly as they wanted to their heart's content. But when those same cursed users like Granny Ogami and Awasaka encounter Gojo, what it means to have someone like Gojo exist in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, even as a kid, is displayed in full effect. Awasaka and Ogami were both contacted about a bounty placed on a kid with the 6 eyes for over 100 million. While Awasaka was enjoying the view on the balcony, and Granny Ogami was enjoying her coffee at a cafe, with just his gaze alone, Gojo sent absolute fear into both of them to the point where they literally began sweating. Gojo's birth alone is compared to a seemingly unbeatable track and field record getting broken, or when figure skaters suddenly have to add one more spin to their jumps because of a single athlete's prowess. With just his birth alone, Satoru Gojo changed the balance of the world, taking away the freedom Awasaka and Ogami both lived for, forcing them to retreat and hide. Back in 2006, Gojo was just a teenager studying at Jujutsu High alongside his classmates Suguru Geto and Shoko. Geto and Gojo were both given a task with delivering and protecting the Star Plasma vessel and delivering her all the way to Tengen. However, Toji Fushiguro is given a similar job: kill the Star Plasma vessel and forcibly stop the merger, and in return he would receive 30 million yen. Toji uses the funds to place a bounty on the Star Plasma vessel instead. Toji began building his strategy. When Toji is asked why he would do something like that when his employers obviously could have done the same thing from the start, he answers and says it's because they have Satoru Gojo on their side. He's the first out of every Gojo clan member in the last 100 years to wield both the 6 eyes and the limitless curse technique. Toji says as long as Gojo is with the Star Plasma vessel, no one would be able to complete the job. Just by having both the 6 eyes and the limitless curse technique alone, Gojo had people as strong as Toji, whose nickname is literally Sorcerer Killer, unsure if they'd be able to complete this job. Keep in mind, Toji hasn't seen Gojo since he was a small child, and currently Gojo's only 16. As an adult, Gojo's stability to the Jujutsu world only grew. Thanks to his immense strength, he was able to elevate the Gojo clan to the level of the 3 big Jujutsu families. The fanbook goes on to explain that the Gojo clan operates almost entirely through Gojo Satoru alone. The fate of the Jujutsu world rests on his shoulders. But now that Satoru Gojo is back, maybe things will go back to the way they used to be. In short, no, not at all. Kenjaku, someone who has taken every precaution to stop Gojo from interfering with his plans, does not seem in the slightest worried about Gojo's return. This is extremely strange because the entire idea of unsealing Gojo was created from the plan that once Gojo returns, he could end everything. Tengen explains that in the past, Kenjaku had fought 2 users of the 6 eyes and failed during both encounters. After the second time Kenjaku had lost, he took no chances and killed the 6 eyes user a month after he was born. After that, he began switching his plan to sealing the 6 eyes instead. Taking this much precaution to make sure Gojo is unable to stop his plan, after knowing how his past attempts went when a 6 eyes user was around, Kenjaku should be extremely worried, but he isn't. The person who he worked so hard to make sure disappeared is currently standing over him. I believe this is because the effect that someone like Gojo had on people acting outside Jujutsu regulations before Shibuya, in reality doesn't matter all that much anymore. I'm not saying Gojo inside the prison realm got weaker, or he can't contend with the odds from a power aspect or anything like that, but rather the world itself has changed. I'll give a few examples. The type of sorcerers that Gojo had sent running away aren't the type of sorcerers that are around now. Before entering the Culling Games, Megami explains to Yuji that most of these sorcerers are from the past, and some are even from 1,000 years ago. But even the people from the last 100 or 200 years valued life completely differently. Fighting to the death was a normal occurrence and they loved it. He says that negotiating with them is a lost cause. In chapter 3, Gojo explains to Yuji who Sukuna was back in the Golden Age. Back then, Sukuna was a human turned curse spirit 1,000 years ago. Sorcerers would fight Sukuna to sharpen their skills but ultimately lose in the end. This just speaks to how much they loved fighting, even willing to die to evolve their strength. In the fanbook, Gege's asked a question about the amount of fear that was spread regarding Sukuna back then compared to Gojo in the present day. Gege answers saying that it can't be compared to Gojo. Not to say that he wasn't feared, but in the past, both sorcerers and cursed spirits were more vicious than they are today. These past sorcerers have grown and embraced a different mindset than the modern day cursed users. Kashimo's entire purpose of wanting to join the Culling Games came from him wanting to battle Sukuna, only because Kenjaku said that he's the strongest sorcerer he knows. People like Kashimo would never fear fear Gojo. In fact, finding out that Gojo may be in fact stronger than Sukuna might even spark his interest even further. Their love for fighting is not going to stop when they realize that someone like Satoru Gojo is around. Another aspect of the world that's been changed in the 19 days that Gojo has been sealed is the power balance. Previously, Gojo was acknowledged by both the protagonist and the antagonist and nearly all sides of the Jujutsu world to be the uncontested strongest, by everybody except Sukuna. Even while Sukuna possesses only 15 fingers worth of his strength, he recalls and reaffirms his promise he made to Gojo originally in chapter 3, that Sukuna would be the one to kill Gojo. But before they can actually begin to fight, Kenjaku interrupts Sukuna and says that he can't fight Gojo until he fulfills some sort of agreement. Gojo hypothesized that there must be some sort of binding vow in place to have Sukuna agree to work with Kenjaku. This is why I believe that Kenjaku isn't worried about Gojo coming back. Kenjaku has said in the past that Sukuna is the eye of the storm of the new age, and that as long as he's around, the chain of curses will never end. Whatever this binding vow may be, it's giving Kenjaku Sukuna support. I'm not saying that a 15-finger Sukuna can beat Gojo or anything like that, but from Kenjaku's perspective, Sukuna seems to be enough to stop him from being worried about taking extreme precautions and sealing away Gojo. Kenjaku doesn't even seem a little bit worried that he's back. Gojo ends up setting a date to rematch Sukuna on December 24th. This is also the same day that Geto waged this war with Jujutsu High. Gojo says that he has some things to take care of before he fights Sukuna. What Gojo currently has planned is unknown, but if I had to guess, maybe it's an idea of a way to separate Megami and Sukuna, or maybe train his students for the biggest upcoming fight the series is ever gonna see, but that's completely headcanon. Not only would players in the Culling games want to find Gojo, but nations who sent out their armies to obtain cursed energy as well. We know that Kenjaku had met with various world leaders, and he explains to them that cursed energy is this new age resource, and it's immensely more powerful than anything the world has ever seen. But the sorcerer the United States government has been most impressed by was Satoru Gojo, even going as far to say that he can power an entire nation by himself. If the government was this interested in the average sorcerer, just imagine their interest in someone who, like they said earlier, can power an entire nation by himself. Gojo's mental state is also currently up in the air. Being inside the prison realm, Angel says that time doesn't flow like how it normally does. What was actually 19 days could have been over 100 years, or maybe just a moment. For all we know, Gojo could have a brand new philosophy and ideology for going about his dream to reset the world of Jujutsu. How this potentially different Gojo will react to everything that's happened in his absence, we don't know. Gojo might be extremely sorry for messing up and getting himself sealed, or he might not even care anymore. Regardless, the only thing that we know for sure is that Gojo wants to kill Kenjaku. We know that even if Kenjaku is killed, the game still won't end because he's not the game master. Last chapter, we saw that Kenjaku made a rule that the Culling games can only end when all players besides Suguru, Geto, and Megami Fushiguro have all died. Meaning so far, Gojo has no real way to end the Culling games. During the next month, Gojo will have to relearn about everything that's happened in his absence and resolve himself before his fight with Sukuna. Nanami, one of Gojo's closest friends and allies, have died. Principal Yaga, Gojo's teacher, was also executed, along with all of his students having to risk their life because Gojo wasn't there. Yuji was put back on the execution list and had to bear the guilt of Sukuna killing a large portion of Shibuya's population. Todo and Inumaki had lost their arms, and Todo had lost his curse technique completely and is currently out of commission. Nobara's current condition is completely unknown, and Megami, as Gojo has already seen, has been taken over by Sukuna. We also now have to wait and see how Gojo's gonna react to seeing Maki, who's now basically the spitting image of Toji. But before we wrap up, I want to go over a theory based on a possible foreshadowing for Gojo's final fight with Sukuna. Since the beginning of the series, we've known that Gojo believes he can win against Sukuna, and Sukuna believes he can kill Gojo. While at first glance, these two outcomes should contradict each other, there's actually a way for both of these predictions to come true. When Gojo mentions he can win against Sukuna, what does he actually mean? When Gojo begins training Megami, we get some insight on what exactly Gojo means by winning. Gojo tells Megami that he doesn't know how to bring out his best self. For example, the baseball game. While Megami played the safe option and bunted the ball to make sure Nobara could advance, someone like Yuji is always swinging for the fences. While in baseball, a sacrifice bunt isn't a bad move, baseball is a team sport where everybody is expected to play their role. But being a Jujutsu sorcerer is an individual sport. While coordinating with allies is important, Gojo says that no matter what, you'll always die alone. Right now, Megami can only judge and match up the people around him rather than picturing a stronger version of himself. Megami, up until this point, when faced with an extremely tough situation, he resorts to summoning his strongest Shikigami in his arsenal, Maharaga. Gojo says that Maharaga is the ace up his sleeve that Megami thinks that in the worst case scenario, if he were to summon Maharaga to sacrifice himself in order to save his friends, his death would make everything end well. But Gojo says if Megami keeps thinking like that, he'll never match up to Gojo or even Nanami. Winning by dying and winning even if you die are two completely different things. This could be foreshadowing Gojo's end against Sukuna. Gojo dying to Sukuna can still lead to him winning in the long term. As we know, Gojo's goal is to build up his students to oppose the higher ups authority. Once they become strong sorcerers and even allies to Gojo, some of them one day, he says, won't even be limited to the rank special grade. Maybe Gojo will weaken Sukuna but still die, and in the end, end, Gojo's students will finish the fight, leading to Gojo winning by dying and his students trying to win even if they die, like he tells Megumi during their original conversation. This would make Sukuna and Gojo's prediction for the fight both correct. Sukuna can kill Gojo and Gojo can still win, but let me know your thoughts below. Whatever happens on December 24th, it'll probably be the climax on the way to the end of the manga that we all love, Jujutsu Kaisen. If you enjoyed JJK content, please leave a like and subscribe, and comment on some video ideas you want to see be done down below.